Welcome everybody to a very special Christmas New Year's event. This is
Yeah.
something I've wanted to do for quite a while because I love Christmas, I love holidays, and I think it's always fun to go back and look at a lot of the customs, where we got things from, why we do certain things, because a lot of people
Uh-huh.
always, you always hear, the thing I hear most is things like Christmas trees are pagan, the holidays pagan,
Yeah.
Krampus is pagan.
Yeah.
And is that really true though? And I really I do like parsing this out and going through this, because I think Christmas is an amalgamation of many things.
Hmm.
And it's not just about even the holiday season. A lot of people say the holiday season, oh, it doesn't matter, you shouldn't celebrate it, it's boring. I think it's fun anyway. And Mark and I both have our Christmas hats on. We're gonna
Yeah.
play a little game of So What Do You Know? And we have many sources where we've drawn these answers from. We will go through them afterward,
Yeah.
just so this way you can do further reading. And Mark's got the
We can
tally.
do further
You
reading. I
could
mean, there's
you
nothing better for holidays, is there?
exactly, it's further reading. Exactly. Well,
No,
one thing
when you said you always enjoy, I thought you were going to say I always enjoy questioning and being correct. Like
there is that
I always enjoy the trivia and being
there is
correct.
that aspect of it where, people do ask me, or I hear people say things, and then I'm just in a corner going like this.
Mm.
And then
Mm.
somebody asks me, is that right? And I go, but
And
when
your Christmas hat slightly quivers when you no, just slight
it
quivering.
so let's start off with, so first of all, let's just lay the ground rules and just be very clear. When we're saying the word pagan, we mean specifically pre-Christian Europe and the Near East.
Uh-huh.
We're not talking about neo-paganism. We're not talking about that. Just the word paganism, as Christians invented it, is to mean non-Christian. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all we mean.
Although interestingly, for the Romans, the word pagan included Christianity. It meant countryside religions.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what they thought. So the word comes
Yeah.
from the word pagus, which means
Mm.
local or municipal. Yeah, so for
Yeah.
them it did, yeah. Because
Yeah.
well, we're going to talk about it in a second, but they also did have mystery religions. They didn't only have
Mm.
one religion or another, or their gods or another god. They had other things that cropped up. I mean, it's a huge empire, there's going to be things that crop up all over the place. So
Hmm.
first question, Mark, how
Yeah.
did Christmas get its name?
Oh, come on. See, this feels like QI. So if I go Christ Mass, will there be like a
No, it will be me going, oh no.
yeah, wrong.
Not no, actually no, you're
Get
not you're
good.
you're not that far off. So is that
Okay.
your answer? It's Christmas, that's your answer?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean that is essentially where we get part of it from, right? So
Okay.
you are right.
Do I get a
Uh
point?
yeah, Christmas, as in like Christ, is in the translation of the Greek word for Messiah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's because it once celebrated, well, it was supposed to celebrate like the second coming, or like the return of the light of the world. What
Yeah.
about Xmas? What about Xmas?
Now, interestingly, my mum, who was brought up Catholic, always used to say to me, Xmas was for people who didn't know.
Oh,
Wrong, wrong, wrong. No, no, no. Sorry, I think is it a Latinate abbreviation?
yes, very good. So
Yes.
Xmas is just an abbreviation, and it's just as old actually. It was the X is the Greek letter chi, and it appears
Cairo.
in that's right, and it appears
Mhm.
in Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. So it's not. 1038 AD, there occurs the first recorded appearance of the English name of Christus Mason, which
Okay.
is where you get that from.
Yeah.
And Danish rule over England resulted in the introduction of the colloquial Scandinavian term for Yule,
Uh,
which what some people used at the time, which provided the alternative name amongst the English specifically.
yes.
It
Okay.
became Yeah, so the name became popular in the next century, and in the 13th century, this name was recorded in Scotland, where it became standard vernacular speech by the end of the Middle Ages.
Okay. Cool.
Very funny aside that this sort of like Christmas is where the Pennsylvania Dutch gave us a lot of our names from. So, for example, things like Chris Kringle
Uh-huh.
is a Dutch bastardization of the German Christkindl, meaning Christ
Ah.
child. Yeah.
Oh, so not meaning that this is Chris's Christmas Kindle that he got for Christmas, and
No, and
don't be touching it.
and not Christmas candle, which is what unfortunately some people do think.
Oh,
Yeah, but no. I mean, there
interesting.
are people do light candles for Christmas, but that's a completely different thing, and that came completely separately.
As an aside, and folks at home, I deliberately not looked up any of these. I'm sort of playing. I'm one of you. I'm playing potentially as someone who might be tripped up by these. But uh, as an aside, do you find it interesting that people do follow these sort of uh, etymologies based on sounds like and it reminds me of. And if you do like it, do you sort of applaud the curiosity at least, even if they end up going down a rabbit hole that leads to half of society thinking something that's not quite
Of
right?
course I do. Anytime somebody's interested in that,
Hmm.
we have a lot of things that are false etymologies where people
Hmm.
think they've come from one thing, but they haven't. And then
Hmm.
unfortunately that false etymology can lead to people thinking certain things, which we're going to
Yeah.
get to in a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's okay. As long as there is a natural curiosity
Hmm.
there and people do enjoy the aspects of learning. I'm happy with that. That's fine. So
Well,
Mark,
oh, sorry. Well, I was going to say it's kind of like what we were talking about last time, where almost enjoying being wrong as a learning opportunity.
yeah,
So for
exactly.
example, like locally, there's a place called Morpeth, which in all of the etymology books, the place name books, they say it means murder path, mort, death, murder path,
A bit stretchy.
It is very stretchy, and it's not correct. It is actually a path across the moorland, is where it
Ah,
comes from.
that makes sense.
And local history experts get very annoyed, people who live in Morpeth, the members of the Morpeth Historical Society, but it's in all the books. And I think the moment it's written down by a dodgy Victorian sort of, well, I don't
Uh-huh.
know, I think this sounds very exciting, then it can become that, yeah, that false etymology.
We are
Mm,
going to talk about that, and we're specifically going to
yeah.
talk about Frasier in a bit. So,
Okay. Okay.
so in case people don't know, James Frasier wrote The Golden Bough, which is very
Yeah.
famous. It's a very famous anthropological record.
Yeah.
But he did get things wrong, and he tried, and a lot of things that are in that book, uh, people do cite it, and unfortunately, it's just not correct.
Right. So was it not golden? It was just yellow.
It was burnished.
It's burnished.
It was burnt a little
A
bit.
burnished bow. Sorry, right. I'm interrupting you. Hit me with the next question. Go
So
on.
give yourself a point, and now, so what?
Actually, I'm on 2 points, actually. So,
Very well. What is Advent?
what do you mean by that?
What is it? Is it a season? Is it part of Christmas? What is it?
Uh, it is a countdown to Christmas that begins 4 Sundays out from Christmas.
Oh, very good, Mark. Very good. Uh, excellent. So
Yes.
it is movable, and that's why it's
Uh-huh.
considered to be a season, because the
It's a
Advent
movable
season.
feast.
Exactly. Advent is not Christmas. And
Okay.
unfortunately, a lot of people, especially in modern days, where they go, "Woo, November 1st,
Yeah.
get the Christmas stuff out." It is not Christmas. As it's very specifically a different season. It's a completely separate holiday of its own, because it was the
Yeah.
time where people thought about the end of the world. It was called the Quadrisemia of Saint Martin,
Oh,
and it started around Saint Martin's Day, which was November 11th,
right.
which is still celebrated in parts of Germany. And
Uh-huh.
originally, it was called All Old Hallows. It was originally a fast. It was a
Mm-hmm.
fast time for 40 days, just like Lent.
Mm-hmm.
And Christmas was supposed to represent coming. So Christmas was the big celebration
Right.
at the end of it, the return of the light with the big Christmas feast.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I like it. And it's interesting as well because you say, for example, yesterday morning, sorry, I went into a local shop and they have Easter eggs out. And it's not even 2024 yet. But it's fascinating to me how, yeah, these seasons have elongated in people's minds, but also it's amazing how a lot of people who get their Christmas decorations out for, the moment Halloween is over, so in that October November transition, also take them down on Boxing Day.
Too early.
it's fascinating to me that. So yeah, we're going to be probably January 5th or 6th thing it, or we could, as you were pointing out yesterday, go all the way into February if we wanted
Hold
to.
it. Pump the
Oh, hold it.
brakes.
Okay, 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 I'm
Pump
sorry.
the
I'm sorry.
brakes.
I'm sorry.
Somebody asked me,
Sorry.
on one of my other videos today, actually, because today we're filming this on New Year's Eve, which is Saint Sylvester's Day.
Oh,
And yeah, and places like Switzerland really do celebrate it. Today in many places, traditionally the day where mummers would go around.
right.
And so
Yeah.
they do have Sylvester Claus who do go around and wish everybody a good year and everything. And they're very cool characters dressed in bells. Um,
Cool.
and yeah, and so that it does that is the point, is that this whole period is supposed to have its own things, but in
Right.
much of the Western North America, we just kind of mow over it and don't think about any of these things anymore.
Okay. What? You don't have to buy presents? Well, pah. Nothing I can sell. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
They
Well,
they
I'm
could
gonna
they
I'm
could
gonna stop
commercialize
interjecting.
it, but they don't.
No,
Okay,
this is true.
so next question,
Mhm.
which I always hear is, do we know how solstice was originally celebrated?
I mean, surely we can't, can we?
Very good, Mark. We have no idea.
Okay. Phew. Okay. I was just
No
thinking, what?
idea.
Okay.
We know that there was sun worship at
Yeah.
pre-Christian. Solstice was important, obviously, to the ancient world because
Yeah.
of how all the monuments are situated, right?
Yeah.
Things like Maze Howe, our good buddy Stonehenge, the dark souls of archaeology,
Yeah.
and of course Newgrange, probably the most famous.
Hmm.
But as Professor Ronald Hutton writes in Stations of the Sun, literary sources do not tell us anything conclusive about midwinter practices. In the 5th century, St. Patrick, however, writes that there was sun worship in Ireland, but doesn't tell us how it was done. The Senus Cormac, the glossary produced around the year 900, states that the solar symbol was carved on certain altars. And Ireland has many sun gods like Lu and Anya, but we have no idea if they were worshipped
Hmm.
at this time, because Lu has Lunasa, right? And we have no idea if any of them were connected with solstice. The Brits had Silas, the
Hmm.
Welsh have Olwen, right?
Hmm.
And like we say, all the monuments are placed to be on the sunset uh,
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
solstice, but how the solstice was actually celebrated, we have no clue.
No, no. And that's not just, I think that's not just a coming of Christianity issue. Lots of people will, often point uh, to more recent traditions as usurping deliberately and rather cynically old traditions. But it's also just about people intergenerationally dropping what they consider to be old hat.
Hmm.
I think it's not necessarily a planned thing, is it? It comes about because people they change their habits essentially, and yeah. But as you say, we can point to the fact that the monuments are pointing at the sun at that point. But yeah, I wonder what would you do to worship the sun?
I'd probably make a sacrifice,
Okay,
because
yeah,
we do have suns on altars, so there must
hmm,
have been some kind of thing that was given. Don't know if
yeah,
it was an actual, like a boar or something like that. No clue.
mm, mm,
For specifically for solstice, so
mm.
maybe something like that, or maybe offering of first fruits or whatever it is, or maybe something from the previous year.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
okay,
it.
okay,
That's
yeah.
all I can think of.
I like the idea of people going around all day squinting.
Can you see it? Can you
Yeah,
see?
exactly. Don't look at it.
Well,
And
you
the thing about worshiping the sun in Ireland, though, there's a big joke, really every summer, that one day when it's actually hot, suddenly all these pale people turn up at the beach. That's the closest you get to sun worship, and there's just this sort of belt of like white, very white, almost translucent flesh on
the re
on the sand.
myself included, the real reason for the season, you go out and suddenly we start reflecting the sun. That's what
Exactly.
to stop global warming. You just
Hmm.
have all the northern people stand
Yeah,
outside in the sun and reflect the sun. And one day a year, that's it.
yeah,
We'll
just
cure the world's ills.
exactly. Yeah, I think that could work. That could work.
So you got that one, Mark. Very good.
Yeah, cool. 4 points. Excellent. Thank you.
Next, is Christmas just Saturnalia in disguise?
Oh, no.
Kind of, because
Okay, kind of.
but so it's not Saturnalia. No, Saturnalia started at a completely different time.
Uh-huh.
But there is a little bit of crossover. So Christmas was purposely placed in between Saturnalia and Calends,
Yeah.
because it was a gap in the pagan calendar, and they did not want it to cross over with pagan festivals.
No.
We get Saturnalia and Calends or Calende from the Romans, obviously, and it began on the 17th of December and ended around the 23rd. And the
Okay.
25th was marked by the Romans as Sol Invictus, which was the return of the sun. So it was the end of the solstice, the
Yeah.
25th.
But
Calends,
that's when the sun starts rising again in the sky,
right,
isn't it? Yeah.
exactly, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And then remember, they didn't have instruments as we do, so we can
No.
measure this now. They didn't, so they had to approximate, right?
Mhm.
So Calends went from the 1st to the 3rd of January, and that's when Romans exchanged gifts.
Okay.
Was
Yeah.
then. So in early Roman times, the year opened. Remember, the year used to open with March, right?
Yeah.
That used to be their beginning of the calendar,
Yeah.
which is why the months from September to December are completely numbered incorrectly now.
Mhm.
As for Rome itself, among wealthy Romans, Saturnalia was by far like the more celebrated feast. Calends was not as big as Saturnalia, and like we said, that was on the 17th of December.
Okay.
Religious
Okay.
rites were confined to the 17th as well, but
Mhm.
revelry continued for a minimum of 2 to 7 days afterward. As well, some sources say that there was a father time figure who represented Kronos who went around, but he was an agricultural god and carried a scythe. So not Santa either.
Oh, I
Uh,
see. So, Father, your time will be up one day.
yeah,
Sort of
exactly.
memento mori. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
In 354 AD was when Pope Liberius ordered that the 25th be observed as the birthday of Christ.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they chose he chose this day because remember that the Roman New Year started on the 25th of March, right? And so
Mhm.
9 months later exactly is
25th of December. Okay.
how
Interesting.
how exactly they decided that Jesus was born 9 months exactly after the time of conception.
Hey, if he's going to turn up, and he's divinely imbued, he's going to be on time,
Yeah,
surely. But also as well, there's this thing, isn't there? Because the whole shepherds watch their flocks, etc. In the
yeah,
Middle East, that's more of an autumn thing, isn't it?
that's
It's sort of
right. That's
September
right.
to November, maybe.
Yeah.
So really, in that sense, he definitely wasn't born in December.
No.
But
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in just a second.
oh, sorry, I
We're
keep
gonna
on doing this. I'm
No, but
sorry.
that's great. That's
Okay,
great. See,
okay.
but you're gonna win. You you're gonna win. That's great.
Without trying. Okay.
So give yourself a point for that one. You did very well.
Well, actually, no, I gave you the point there. You needed it.
Next question. So, was Christmas made 12 days to match other pagan holidays? How long was Yule? Do you know?
I don't
We're
know.
talking about
No.
pre-Christian Yule,
Yeah, yeah,
pre-Christian rule.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but I might be wrong.
No, you're right. That is right.
Oh, okay.
Pre-Christian Yule, because remember,
Hmm.
Yule was then made to be the name for Christmas, but you were talking about Yule before Jesus. Yule
Uh,
was anywhere from 3 to 2 weeks, according to Snorri. And
okay.
Snorri, our good buddy Snorri, says that Yule was actually in January. It was not
Right.
in December. Anglo-Saxons celebrated Mother Night or Mother's Night, and it was only one day. The
Interesting.
church in Rome began formally celebrating Christmas on the 25th as of 336 during the reign of Emperor Constantine. But 354 AD was the first time it appeared on the calendar along with the 12 days. The
Okay.
12
Well,
days, however, were not
okay.
officially recognized until the 6th century.
Right.
Professor
Uh,
Ronald Hutton adds that while the Council of Tours declared the 12 days as one festal cycle, it confirmed that the three of those days were actually fasting days, dividing the rejoicing days into two blocks. January 2nd, 3rd, and 4th being fasting days before 12th night.
Okay. Well, and to be fair, you probably need it. You probably need it. But the other thing as well to bear in mind is no, so my other question rather, and I don't know if this is pertinent to what you might be about to ask. I keep on doing this to you. Is it connected to something else then, these 12 days?
Kind of, but not, maybe not what you think. So the 12 days weren't just for Jesus. They were for, obviously, so the 25th is for Jesus. The 26th is for the 26th is for Saint Stephen, right? And then 27th is Feast of Saint John, not that John, different John. Then there's Childermass, which is the massacre that never happened. We know that now. If anybody doesn't know, there's the story.
The Herod massacre.
That's right. The story of Herod the king. And we know historically that absolutely never happened. Then there's also St. Thomas's Day, not that St. Thomas, because other St. Thomas that's the 21st when people go Thomasing. And then today is Saint Sylvester's Day. And then
when you go Thomasing on the other Thomas's Day, do you go around very sort of skeptical? You just sort of go up to doors and go, I don't believe you live here. Prove it. Where's your lease?
That's how the Mary Lloyd was invented. Yeah. Scaring people out of their leases.
Show the horse skull.
And then obviously tomorrow is the Feast of Circumcision, the one that nobody likes to remember because it's weird. And then obviously
of his circumcision.
Yeah.
I suppose that makes sense. Yeah.
8 days later, right? That's how
it's gotta be. Yeah.
And then there were the 3 fast days, and then 12th night, right? And then Epiphany. But there's also the feast of the baptism, which I always think is interesting, because if Christianity hadn't been invented yet, how do you baptize? But but the feast of the baptism, which is when the Eastern Orthodox Church celebrates its movable feast, is on the 7th of January. Next year it's on the 12th because it moves. And technically, in medieval court times, the Yuletide season didn't end until the 2nd of February.
Right.
Because that's Candlemas. That's the feast of the purification of Mary, when the king and queen went to process at mass. So the Yuletide season was actually like a month long. Just the 12 days were officially the days on the calendar.
Exactly. And it's interesting how lots of people, for example, at this time of year on YouTube, lots of people do like Vlogmas, or the 12 days of Vlogmas or whatever. And it's so arbitrary where they place these 12 days. Sometimes it's the whole of December. Sometimes it starts in 12 days before Christmas and has its zenith. Not its zenith, sorry. It's a culmination on Christmas. But yeah, it's where the number of people who don't know that the 12 days begin and then end in January is fascinating, or when they begin.
Because we nowadays, we serve the real Lord and Savior, Mark, the YouTube algorithm.
The YouTube algorithm. Long may it rain. Yeah, exactly. Precisely.
So you did well there, though. You got that one.
Thank you. Okay.
So now to ask the question that you were answering before is, was Jesus really born in December?
No. No. Well, almost certainly not, if he was born at all. It's one of those things, isn't it, where some people, I'm sure in the comments right now, will be going, if he was born at all, if he was even real. Personally, I have no problem with there being a historical figure. But if that historical figure was born according to the circumstances that are remotely described in the New Testament, no, he wasn't born in December.
No, the Bible says absolutely nothing about when Jesus was born. In fact, Luke and Matthew say he was born in Bethlehem, but there's absolutely no date. They don't even know themselves. Some believe he was born in Augustus's time, but that would mean that Herod's time would be completely out. If he was born at the time of Herod, Herod died in 4 BC. Which we know that. So that means that Jesus was born sometime around probably 4 to 6 BC. As for the day, some biblical scholars give it for the 20th of May or April, calculating from the old Egyptian calendar.
Okay.
But due to the shepherds, like you said, due to the shepherds being out with their flocks, many biblical scholars believe sometime in September is probably the most likely. So like we said, he was born sometime probably around 4 to 6 BC, if he was born under the time of Herod the king. or he was born later and we don't know. But since the old Roman New Year was the 25th of March, they just calculated the 9 months later and gave us the 25th of December.
Yeah,
That's it.
That's a very the way that Latin and Greek, for example, behave as languages gives you like a psychological insight. That's a very Roman thing to do, isn't it? This is done, then 9 months later, okay. So it just, and you can imagine midwives going, it's not that simple. Should we tell them? I'm like, no, shut, quiet, woman. Yeah.
Should
No,
we
but
tell them that that's 7 months, 8 months? Do they know?
yeah,
Do they know?
exactly. Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, and also it was her first pregnancy, and so on and so forth. Anyway, yeah, 9 months, fair enough. Okay, fair enough. So I've added a point. Okay, what's
Is
next?
Christmas just Yule or a Saxon holiday in disguise?
Well, based on previous conversation, no.
No. And we're
Yes.
again specifically we're talking about pre-Christian Yule, not modern Yule. Very
No.
different thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, not neo-pagan Yule. Very specifically pre-Christian. Okay. So first of all, we don't even know what the word Yule means. I will tell
No.
you
Okay.
that we
Okay.
have no idea. It possibly related to the Old English Yale or whale, either meaning health or the wheel, which would both make
Okay.
sense, as in like the turn of the year. That makes sense.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
But no, we have no idea what that word means. And even Snorri, he describes how pre-Christian Yule was a 3-day feast, which began on what he called midwinter night. However, this is, as I said, this is distinct from the winter solstice, and he was
Yeah.
very clear that they celebrated approximately 1 month later in January.
Mm.
Andreas Norberg proposes that Yule was celebrated on the full moon of the second Yule month in the early Germanic calendar, which could range anywhere from the 5th of January to the 2nd of February on the Gregorian calendar. Norberg positions that midwinter night or nights was from the 19th to the 21st of January in the Gregorian calendar. And Saxons didn't celebrate Yule. They celebrated Mother's Night, which was said was only one night, or in Old English, Night of Mothers. More than a neat. And it was an event that was held on what is now Christmas Eve.
Interesting. Okay.
The event is solely attested, though, by our buddy Bede, the venerable Bede.
Hey, he's venerable, all right?
He's
Leave him
venerable.
alone. He's venerable.
But he has his biases.
He does have his biases.
He wrote about it in the 8th century, which is how we know it was a thing. But he's the only source we have about this. It's been suggested that sacrifices might have occurred during this event. Other scholars have proposed that connections between Modanit and events attested among other Germanic peoples, as in like female deities being worshipped. And we do have kind of evidence of that in female figures that go around the Germanic places, things like Holle, Frau Perchte, et cetera, et cetera. We know that there was a pagan rite for dressing in skins and antlers around this time and making the old woman, which was forbidden by the church, but we don't know why. Our buddy Fraser in The Golden Bough talks about burning the old woman, and he talks about, but not necessarily in this context, and what that means, well, why they made the old woman or burned the old woman.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
No, that is interesting. Yeah. It's also intriguing as well how clearly that this is a time of year when we sort of return to things that are linked with fire in the darkness and food and checking in on people and so on. There are themes that connect some of this stuff, and you can see why people think that therefore this is just a modern expression of a very clearly a old thing that we can draw a straight line from. But no, apparently not. On the point of Bede, though, Bede is buried at Durham Cathedral. I sometimes go and visit his grave. Actually, he.
I would say I go and visit him, and we have a picnic.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, everyone goes to Cuthbert, and I like Cuthbert. If I was going to be a saint, I'd like to be like Cuthbert because he seems to be quite a grumpy person. He didn't really like hanging around with people. But Bede, yeah, Bede, if you instead of going to the main grave, if you go into the little chapel, the Galilee Chapel to the west, he is there along with, oh, is it Aiden? The remains of someone else is there. I'm gonna
Is
have
it
to
Saint
check who it
Aidan?
is.
Yeah, is he
I don't
there?
think it is Aiden. No, I think Aiden. I think Aiden might be in. I've got to check where Aiden is. I've lost Aiden. But no, Bede is there, and every now and then you'll see someone in like a tweed jacket turning up quite tearfully, going, "Oh, Bede, you're here," that kind of thing. You know, really
I would turn
getting
up and I would
emotional.
just stare at his grave and I go, couldn't you have said more about Easter?
Yeah,
Couldn't you have said?
Mhm.
Did the Druids or the Vikings give us mistletoe for the holiday?
Oh God. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna do it. The Druids. Wrong. Wrong. Okay, cool. You get a point.
And I mentioned it this way because of what we just said, which is
Yeah,
Pliny,
yeah,
our good buddy,
yeah.
is to blame for this myth. He said, and to be fair, he did not say that Druids got excited about mistletoe in the
Hmm.
midwinter. He actually doesn't say that.
No.
He said that they got excited about mistletoe, but very specifically, uh, mistletoe that was found on oak trees, which is very difficult to do. And he talked about only the people in Gaul that he was
Mm,
referring to when it comes to mistletoe.
hmm.
He said it was an antidote to poison and that it was a giver of fertility to animals. So it was very important to Druids. We know that.
Mm,
But he added that it was a magical component
hmm.
in whatever their ceremonies were. But it was ritually gathered on the sixth day of the new moon with a golden sickle, uh, and not part of a seasonal custom. But it was a rare botanical event that was very well celebrated.
Mm.
And that's it.
Okay.
That's
And
all. That's all he gives us.
and
And
what
that's
and sorry, and that is fair enough, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with that. It's what everyone else has done with it since then.
yeah.
That's the problem. Yeah, yeah.
What about kissing under mistletoe, Mark?
I'm going to blame the patriarchy. Come on, give us a kiss. Ooh. Um,
You're not too wrong. But it was kissing under mistletoe was an 18th century invention,
okay.
possibly coming from the earlier kissing bough, the kissing bush. And by the mid
Right.
19th century, it was suddenly found across most of England. Professor Ronald Hutton states the custom had begun and long remained one of common people's. Found in farm kitchen cottages and servants' quarters, the bush could be made out of mistletoe alone, or it was heavily decorated with holly and
Hmm.
ivy,
Hmm.
which is the
Hmm.
real reason for the season, as you so nicely demonstrate with your hat. And in most places, it was made for Christmas, but actually, in other places, it was for New Year's Day only. Uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and it should be clear from the sources that I gave that hanging of mistletoe
Hmm.
is well recorded from the 17th century onward, but the kissing custom came a century later.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people on the internet claim that the kissing bough came from ancient Greece. So that itself might be pagan or pre-Christian, but that we don't really have evidence for. We're not really sure. And that is not necessarily obviously linked to Christmas.
Hmm.
There were boughs that were made just of holly and ivy that would be left up all year. Again, maybe not for Christmas.
Hmm.
Once the practice was commercialized, thanks to the Industrial Revolution,
Hmm.
the wealthy added mistletoe to their holiday decor alongside holly and ivy. And interestingly enough, Ireland never had this custom until very recently. It was an English introduction, as most things were. It's Scotland which presents the largest contrast. Holly was often hung in the house by Highlanders on New Year's Eve,
Okay.
to keep out the fairies.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. And you've got to do that. The fairies are
yeah.
nefarious. Nefarious. Oh, hey. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. Oh, well, actually,
I tried to
that was
hold it in.
that was such a look you gave me there. Just like, oh, for fuck's sake. No, but the on the on the point of the mistletoe, it is interesting how it has become a real trope of a moment. It's not, of a moment where you can have, slightly romantic meetings, or you can be sort of coerced, and I
Mhm.
find that fascinating. It makes me think of Scrooged with Bill Murray, where there's some mistletoe on a board behind the studio exec who's been tied up in a chair, and the censor lady who's been hit in the head now a few times just goes, oh, and sort of runs over to him, like, and he's like, no. But it's interesting how that has become an interesting moment. What do you think? When do you think was the sort of the popular culture sort of peak of mistletoe, approximately? I think
Probably
now it's
18.
less common, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it seems to have been all the rage in the 18th century, 18th and
Yeah.
19th. And
Yeah.
now it's fallen out of favor. As you say, the patriarchy. So a lot of people
Yeah. But like,
don't want
because
that
if you
anymore.
turn up at an office party with mistletoe, people will just avoid you
Yeah.
now.
I mean, it is
Quite understandably.
in Druids, it is a symbol of fertility. So a lot of people, especially nowadays, will just avoid you. But that's why a lot of people seem to try to link it back to Germanic peoples, but no, it didn't come from there at
Okay.
all. I mean, decorating your house with greenery, not a tree, but with greenery was obviously it's a very ancient custom during this time of year. Again, just to give a bit of cheerfulness and
Yeah.
and hope that the sun will come back. It's amazing how prescient Hogfather was.
Yeah. No, yeah, we actually haven't watched that yet this year either, but we need to watch that
Get
before
it watched. It's
the
on
12 days are
YouTube.
out. Well, we've got it on DVD. Yeah, we love it. We'll do it. It will be done. Okay, so what's the next question? Is it about Christmas trees?
We're getting there, but
Okay,
first,
okay,
let's talk about what's under the Christmas tree. So,
okay.
did Saint Francis of Assisi
Yeah.
create the nativity scene?
Oh, well, he did supposedly say, "Go preach the gospel. Use your words if you must." So maybe as a counterpoint to that, he went round making tiny little nativities for people to look at.
You
I'm going
have
to
a
say yes.
point.
I'm going to say yes.
He didn't invent it. No.
Oh,
Sorry. We have evidence.
Say the thing. Say the thing.
Wrong. We have evidence of nativity scenes many years before that, actually. One of the earliest representations in the art of the nativity was found in the early Christian Roman catacomb of Saint Valentine. Not that one.
No. Just imagine like in comes a fluttering little cherub. Nope, not that one.
Get out of here! It's not your time.
Yeah, exactly.
This depiction dates to about 380 AD. It's now generally accepted that the Nativity is an extreme case of like Christian gospels and inventions by various authors to place Christ in the traditional Jewish salvation story.
Right.
And so over time, they kept adding more and adding more and adding more, just like the we were talking about with Herod's massacre. That never happened. That was probably a later invention. This includes
which is a shame, because this sort of goes to what we were just talking about the quality of what history is, in so much as in some ways to a modern eye, embellishing your story to make it more actually makes it less, because it raises so many more questions. So it's interesting, isn't it, how that used to be the thing you did, was just make it more meaningful by adding embellishments, whereas that's not modern historians.
Yeah, because it doesn't sound dramatic, right? One of the traditions before like the nativity story showed up was that Mary gave birth in a cave.
Yeah.
And so the first feast of the nativity as well was in 336 AD. And that was the first time the crib was added. St. Francis popularized the nativity, and you're right, he did go around, and he went around and like Mr. Beaned it, where like different and this is Mary. Exactly.
Well,
the Bible actually but when it comes to the characters, Bible doesn't say how many magi there were, and many of the different characters like showed up over time. As for St. Francis nativity, according to Jane Struthers, stories of the first nativity completely differ, saying that that Mary and Joseph were represented. Others say that they weren't. Others say it was only animals. Some say that there was no baby in the crib, and that part of the whole miracle of the nativity is that if you had an empty crib, you were able to see the baby Jesus in the crib.
Oh, no, that's interesting. That's almost Monty Python-ish, isn't it? Oh, I could definitely see a baby. Can't you see a baby? Yeah, that kind of thing. Oh, I'm very special.
There's nothing in there. What you talking about?
Oh, no, something moved. Oh, no, that's a ladybird.
There are still many customs like that. Maybe not related to Christmas, but there are Jewish customs, specifically like say like the cup of Elijah, where
Mm,
you fill up the cup for Elijah on Passover, and you watch it. Like and you see, did it go down? Are those bubbles? Or is it moving? It's moving. It's definitely moving. You just go,
hmm.
yeah, okay,
Okay.
yeah, it's a thing. Again, it's the same thing where the original story is not very exciting, so
Mm,
you layer on traditions to make it more accessible and to make
yeah.
it more exciting, right?
Well, and also in that sense, more memorable, I guess,
Yes,
as well.
exactly.
Yeah, especially in a well, depending on where you're getting the actual story from, amongst communities even who can't read the original text, it makes it more memorable amongst communities as well, in like a an oral tradition kind of sense. So yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So you didn't get that point, Mark.
I didn't. No, no. Okay.
You'll get this one though. This is an easy
Yep.
one.
Uh-huh.
Was Saint Nicholas a real person?
Yeah. Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
Yes, of course he was a real person.
I'm pretty sure he was.
A Turkish man, Greek descent, rich
Yeah.
merchant's son who became the Bishop of Myra.
Right.
And December 6th is his feast day.
Hmm.
And it obviously is still celebrated in many parts of the world. Gave alms around for hard times of the year, which was probably also linked to St. Thomas's Day.
Hmm.
Many stories associated with St. Nicholas or Sinterklaas obviously became part of Christmas
Hmm.
tradition. St. Nicholas wasn't even recognized as a saint, though, until the 800s. And the
Interesting.
first
Okay.
celebrated St. Nicholas Day, worshipped by Catholics, was somewhere in the 1200s as well.
And is this connected to Krampusnacht as well?
Krampus it does come with him. And
Mm,
so that is the
mm.
whole point. Krampus we're going to get to in a second, and we're going to talk about where he comes from.
Sorry.
We're Krampus representing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
we're we're going to talk about where he comes from,
Mm,
and why he's there, and how there are many different Krampuses. There aren't just one.
mm,
As for his buddy Saint Nicholas, there are many stories associated with him. So stories claim that he would either put money in shoes, or drop money down chimneys.
chimneys. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is where the whole stocking tradition came from, to save
Mm.
poor women from having to sell themselves for money. But
Wasn't there meant to be a story of someone who couldn't afford their dowry
yes,
or
that's right. It
something?
was the
Yeah.
the famous story is three women who couldn't afford their dowry, and their father was panicking about it.
Yeah.
And because Saint Nicholas was rich, he was a merchant's son. He was able to help people and
Yeah.
throw money down chimneys and put it in shoes. In some places, people still do look in their shoes for
Yeah.
gifts, which I
Yeah.
think is great. But once the Protestant Reformation took
Hmm.
hold, the celebration of saints in half of Europe declined. And so
Mm.
that's where we get a lot of other figures that pop out. In some countries, however, kept the practice of Saint Nicholas, even though they weren't Catholic anymore. So in the Netherlands, Saint Nicholas obviously is known as Sinterklaas, which is the
Hmm.
Dutch variant of his name. And he's always depicted as a tall man with a long clerical robe and a red mitre, and a bishop's hat. And
Hmm.
Dutch children used to leave, I don't know if they do anymore, but they used to leave shoes out for Sinterklaas the night of December 5th, which is
Ah. Yeah.
Krampusnacht.
Yeah.
And in the morning, they checked to see what gifts were left for them. Dutch colonists later brought, obviously, the story of Sinterklaas to American colonies in the 17th century.
Hmm.
English-speaking colonists in America adopted the story, calling him Santa Claus.
Mm.
Santa
Mm.
Claus would eventually merge with the Christmas holiday. And Sinterklaas is still patron saint of Smyrna, children, and the poor. But my favorite story about Saint Nicholas is not
Hmm.
the fact that he brought gifts, but that he saved three pickled children and became a necromancer by bringing them back to life.
Pickled.
Yes,
Why were they pickled?
there's a great story. Obviously, there's no evidence that this really happened, but it's one of the
Uh-huh.
stories that are tied to Saint Nicholas. That there were three children who were being cut up by an evil butcher and being used for, I think, veal meat.
Wow.
And he put them in a pickling tub. And so there are so many, look this up because there are so many wonderful medieval depictions of
Could write that
Saint
down. Pickle children.
Saint
Yeah.
Nicholas taking the pickled children out of the pickling tub and bringing them back to life. It's so great.
You know, I sometimes, uh, in a non-specific way, I shall say, do seasonal work where I meet lots of kids, and I might tell them about the typical children next December. But let's see. Uh,
You should tell them.
but that sounds like a D&D campaign.
So good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh my
It's
goodness. Yeah.
fantastic. But yes, that is one of the stories that are associated with written about in his hagiographies, where he saved the three. There's some accounts say that the children were not chopped up yet, and that he just put them
Okay.
in the pickling tub hole, and that they were still alive. But there are other accounts saying that the children were already chopped up and dead, and that Saint Nicholas brought them back to life, and that was the miracle.
Yeah, that would be a miracle.
I mean,
Okay.
it is a D&D party,
Yeah.
because I mean, if you think about it, Saint Nicholas comes with Krampus, and they take the body parts out, right? And he's already wearing the cleric's robe, so he might as well.
Yeah.
And he has this staff.
I like it. Okay, I like it. I dig it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah.
And my favorite depictions are the ones where you just see the children looking so confused and
What, confused, traumatized?
no idea what's going on. And
Yeah.
Saint Nicholas
Burning eyes.
is looking at the artist like this. It's fantastic. I love it. All right, next question. Did
Okay.
Coca-Cola invent modern Santa?
I think not. I think
Correct. They
yeah.
had nothing to do with it.
No.
They erroneously claimed that they gave modern Santa his look, but
Yeah.
no. In 1881, we have a very famous depiction of Santa appearing in his famous red suit with the white fur trim, which had nothing to do with Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
And in many places, Santa, even today, is not red, right? He was green in England for a long time. He's blue in Russia. And Siberian Santa has 6 Santas. It's really, I think I showed you the picture of,
You did, yeah.
they're amazing. Dead Motos. I love this depiction.
Recently I think it was a depiction of Santa who had a David star on his hat.
Yeah, because that's I think in certain Slavic parts, he's a wizard. And that had to do with the Russians. Exactly, but that had to do with Russians wanting to the Russian regime wanting to distance itself from commercialism and Christmas. So what they did is they turned him into a wizard instead.
You shall not commercialize. Yeah.
And so unfortunately the Star of David is also considered to was considered to be a medieval magical symbol. For whatever reason.
Okay, right,
just to cap this off, it was in 1862, illustrator and political cartoonist Thomas Nast combined European traditions of Saint Nicholas with folk images of elves from his native Germany to create the modern day image of Santa.
Right, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. It's also as well because recently I shared on the Discord server that we hang out on, an article from the Public Domain Review. I think you're talking about the image of Santa over the years, and it's interesting how often Santa, some of the early ones are depicted with him smoking a pipe, but also Santa becoming a bit of a ladies' man. Like he turns up at places and he's just
there's a reason for that. Well, we'll get to it. Why he's depicted with pipes and things like that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Speaking of which, the big one, Mark. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Is Santa Odin?
No.
Correct.
Yes. Now, actually, can I before you explain this, can I just say, when I worked at the Jorvik Viking Center, there was a lot of that at this time of year. People saying Santa
there always
Odin,
is.
People saying that Sleipnir were the reindeer.
And so that there is a reason where the disconnect happens. So they're not wrong for wanting to make that connection, because it does seem to be, right? It does seem to be, but we have to blame one very specific man for those depictions.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This is all his fault, and we'll get to that in a second. So, Odin, obviously, or Odin, is associated with the Norse Yule, right? And even throughout the prose Eddas and everything, he is the being. He is called the Yolnir, but again, remember, we don't know what Yule means. The Yolnir, or the Yule god, who comes down from the sky, and he takes souls of bad people. And of course, in the Edda and in the sagas, he's depicted as people giving him he's part of the wild hunt as well. He leads
Mm-hmm.
the wild
Mm-hmm.
hunt. People give him sacrifices as well at
Mm.
this time of the year, and he leaves them, things in return if he likes this sacrifice. But you would think that if he was Odin, that it would carry on to other Germanic peoples, and it doesn't. So as we
No.
said, Anglo-Saxons didn't have an Odin, they didn't have a Santa.
Mm. Mm.
The concept of as well, he didn't carry on to the Low Countries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we know that there was some other evidence that a fertility event during Yule where claimed that
But that's basically describing Christmas, the fertility
the
event
fertility
during
of it.
Yule.
Well, the because we know that Saxons had some kind of fertility thing that
Yeah.
possibly went on during Yule, because remember they
Uh-huh.
were not the same time period, right?
No. No.
And they had a character called Father Time.
Mm.
That's not Woden, right? Because remember Odin and Woden should be
Mm.
linked, but so it wasn't Woden for them who came.
No.
As we said, Odin is called the Yulnir. We don't know what that means. He's said to have dressed in blue. Russia has blue Santa, but
Mm.
he's Dead Motos, which is a wizard and has nothing to do with anything else. Poland has, I apologize for butchering this name, but Gwizedor, I think that's how it's pronounced, the
Okay.
Starman.
Ah.
Yeah, it's you should see his depictions. He's wonderful. Or Father Frost, who came out of despotic times trying
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of popularism. Many Nordic countries as well nowadays don't have Santa either. They have Gryla, right? Iceland has Gryla, the Yule cat, Jolakaturin, the Yule lads. Finland has Joulupukki,
Okay.
who
Yeah.
came out of an earlier tradition of Nutpukki. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologize for my Finnish. Which is we'll talk about in relation to Krampus. But some people essentially the whole so you would think that if he was Santa, that
Mm.
he would have had lasting effect, right?
Yeah.
Especially in North, but he doesn't. He doesn't at all. And
No.
as I said, this is the reason why so many people think Odin is
Mm.
Santa. Um,
Interesting.
because now Saint Nicholas was not associated with Christmas, as we said, until the Reformation.
Mm-hmm.
And even further, Saint Nicholas, Santa in general, did not fly, did not go across the sky, did not have a sleigh, and did not have reindeer until 1821.
Right. Okay.
1821 is when it happens. The account of a visit from St. Nicholas, or as we know it, 'twas the night
The night
before
before
Christmas,
Christmas. Yeah.
written by our good buddy Clement Seymour, or Clement Clark Moore.
Mm-hmm.
And his inspiration for the character came from a local Dutch handyman
Right.
who told him stories. And so he used Dutch words like blitzen and things like that in the
Yeah.
story.
Thunder. Yeah.
Yeah, Moore made up many of the features that are still associated with Santa Claus today, while borrowing other aspects, such as the use of reindeer from like Lapland tradition. But even
Mm.
Laps, they didn't even celebrate Christmas until recently.
Mm.
So whenever people say to you, oh, it's because of the reindeers, because of flying across the sky,
Yeah.
there was no connection whatsoever until
Yeah.
1821. And we have no idea why
Interesting.
he came up with this, or why he used these specific images.
Mm.
But many
Well.
North Americans or people in the West now associate Santa with things like flying, throwing things down
Mm.
chimneys, and it's all because of that poem.
Yeah. But it's interesting because that stuff that used to happen in and around this time of year at the Orbic Center extended to stuff for which I don't think there's any evidence. Things like kids getting presents at the end of their beds in Norse culture.
No,
And
there's no
no,
evidence.
exactly, yeah, stuff being left in clogs, etc. People would say this,
The
and
shoes came from Saint Nicholas, but Saint
yeah,
Nicholas is not Santa. Well,
no,
is
exactly,
not Odin Santa, yeah.
yeah. Now, of course, you don't want to be stood there all day saying no, actually, that kind of thing, because
Well,
frankly,
it's
that
very simple. When people say this to me, I say, okay, so think about this.
mm,
Are there any depictions of Santa flying, having
mm,
reindeer, doing chimney stuff before 1821?
no, yeah,
There
yeah.
aren't. There's no art for it, nothing. So in fact,
Also,
as we said, that he's
yeah,
he's depicted instead as a different type of character with a pipe, which we will get
mm,
to,
mm.
right now.
Oh,
So,
okay,
Mark,
okay.
is Father Christmas the original Santa?
Well, no. Well, again, based on what we've already talked about, by definition, no.
By definition, no. The figure of Father Christmas was mentioned in Tudor courts, and he was dressed in green.
Uh-huh.
But Father Christmas, the personification, was created, we know, was created by Ben Jonson in England in 1616.
Right.
And he was a very cheeky looking man, revelrous, and had a pipe, to spite Puritans who wanted the feast abolished because it's not in the Bible.
Right.
And he stood for seasonal revelry, had nothing to do with gift giving, or children, because those were
Uh,
things that were associated with Saint Nicholas.
yeah.
And he had nothing even to do with Santa until he was merged with him in the late 19th century.
Interesting.
And that's
Interesting.
why you'll see Father Christmas with a pipe.
Yeah, and it's also why lots of people. It's interesting now, especially to a more recent time. So in the last say 10 years
Mm.
in this country, you can tell a slightly middle to upper middle class person by whether they call Santa Claus or Father Christmas. Father Christmas is an older, more English thing to say, I think.
That's right, yeah.
But also, actually, it's interesting, this thing about wanting to ban the feast because it's not in the Bible. Tudor England wasn't in the blooming Bible. Like, did they didn't they want to ban that? Like potatoes, I think, was something else that I think in Scotland they wanted to ban. And
That's understandable though, because potatoes are technically a nightshade, and if you don't know how to cook them properly, you will get poisoned.
yeah, there was a rumor that they were poisonous, but the point was that they don't appear in the Bible. So
That's right.
people were like, we cannot be eating these. What are you doing? Devil's food. And you're like, well, haggis isn't in the Bible. What like, excuse me.
I think Bede mentions it, Mark.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. But it's interesting, this is the reason why in any walk of life, this isn't just me mocking religion per se, but in any walk of life, if you hold dear to one edition of one book, you're gonna come a cropper. You know,
Yep.
you just are. Anyway, yeah.
How it is. So speaking of holding to traditions and ideas,
Yeah.
Another biggie, Mark,
It goes
is
with textbooks too. So go on. Yeah.
is the Christmas tree pagan?
I'm going to say no, but I have a story about it.
Go.
So am I right? Am I
what's the
right?
story? What's the story?
Okay. Again, comes from my time working at the Orbit Viking Center. People said or went through a phase of saying that tinsel was sacrificed. It was the entrails of a sacrificed animal thrown into the forest, upon which frost would gather and glitter in the moonlight. People, I mean, you got to give credit for the imagination.
That's a creative
Yeah.
one. That one
Yeah.
I've never heard. That's pretty
Yeah.
good. But no.
Yay!
So as we said before, now before we talk about this, because I want to make it very clear that decorating the home with ivy, with ivy and holly and with other evergreens was a pagan custom, or decorating with those things was that.
What about Ivy and Ollie? Sorry.
I'll get into the goat song in a minute.
Okay.
But in general, the Christmas tree was first recorded by German Lutherans in the 16th century. In 1444, in Cornhill, London, there was an account of a Christmas tree being set up. In 1509 is the first record of a Christmas tree, and it was nailed with holly and ivy. So it wasn't the tree itself; it was an object that was nailed with holly and ivy.
Okay.
But no mention of what type of wood or anything that was used. Christmas trees were also placed at the Cathedral of Strasbourg in 1539 under the leadership of Martin Bucer. But those are the first depictions that we have.
So I'm going to give you a point as well there, because had you reworded that question even slightly, I would have fallen into the trap that it was Albert and Victoria. You see.
Hold on.
I'm going to give you a point there.
Wait.
Oh, I keep on doing it. I'm so sorry. I keep on
so I'll ask it now. So who first popularized the Christmas tree, Mark?
Well, I think you'll find it was Prince Albert and Queen Victoria.
No.
You get a point.
It was Queen Charlotte, actually.
Right. Interesting.
who had the first Christmas tree in England that was popular, that was shown in a depiction
Right.
where it was a yew tree, and she put it up for a Christmas tea for children, and she hung it
Okay.
around with dried fruit, actually.
Hmm.
And we're not sure, but they might have gotten this custom from the Paradise Tree, like the Adam and Eve name day,
Hmm.
uh, and where there were a lot of medieval mystery plays that were done on the 24th of December, name day for Adam and Eve in various countries.
Mm.
These plays had decorated trees with apples, round wafers as well. Like the Christmas crib, the Paradise Tree was later placed in homes. Apples were replaced by round objects like shiny round balls or baubles. Germans set up
Baubles.
Germans set up Paradise Tree in their home on the 24th,
Hmm.
uh, and they hung wafers on it to represent the host, obviously.
Right.
Lutherans brought the tradition to England, but while Prince Albert popularized it, it was Queen Charlotte that was the first one to do it in England.
Interesting.
And
And
because
just to be clear, when who was when was that? Ish.
before Victoria,
Yeah, before Victoria.
before
Oh,
Victoria.
yeah. Well, like you say.
Interestingly enough, though, Irish people in Wexford, just to back up for a second, there are people who ask all the time, they're like, but wait a minute, Christmas Carol happens in Victoria's time. Why does nobody
Mm,
have Christmas trees? And even Charles Dickens called it a new German toy.
right.
It
Okay.
was not, it was, nobody had Christmas trees in that
No.
time.
No.
Even Irish people in Wexford who grew up in the 1960s claimed that they never had Christmas trees. But they did
Really?
have holly and wreaths and those kinds of things. Um,
Okay.
but they never they also celebrate Women's Christmas and still do. But trees were never part of the celebration because Ireland at the time had very few firs. Um, and
Yeah.
just to be clear as well, Druids, we have no records of Druids dressing up trees for solstice. They
No.
venerated trees. They venerated
Mm,
specifically oak trees, apple trees, but and they certainly would not cut down a tree to
no.
bring it inside. Absolutely not.
No. No.
That would be there is a legend that was made up. We don't know when of Saint Boniface and the oak tree called Thor's tree, and that was completely made up. That was a story that either the church made up to try to link Christmas trees with pagan
Hmm.
celebrations,
Hmm.
because they wanted people to stop putting up Christmas trees.
Hmm.
But they borrowed that story from the story of Donar's oak, in which Saint Boniface is said to have felled an oak circa 724 AD in Germany. And they tried to link the tree to Yggdrasil and claim that, but no.
Mm, mm,
There's some people who tried to link the tree that was talked about in the Holly and Ivy as a pagan tree, but the
mm.
Holly and Ivy was written in the 18th century, so that's quite impossible.
Yeah. But that 18th, 19th century time was a time when lots of these things were being stirred up again,
Hmm.
and being, I suppose, reevaluated. And I guess linked to my question earlier about the extent to which you tolerate sort of folk etymology, I suppose. Do you think that there is something to be said for almost a convergent evolution of ideas, that culture itself can generate things that kind of become not true, but valid in some way, that maybe in a
I
couple
think
of
so,
hundred
yeah.
years' time, if we're not careful, will be taken as fact, as it were?
So, for example, there are three figures in medieval, I guess, Christmas lore that we
Mm,
always see images of. The very famous image of the Mummers play of the stag
mm,
man, the bull man, and the old woman.
mm,
And the church banned these three characters, and we
mm,
don't know why. And
mm,
it's interesting that even though this custom or these characters fell out of favor in England, suddenly you have things like the hobby horses that pop up, right? You have the hobby horse in
mm,
Kent. There's Old Tup. And obviously our good
mm,
buddy, the Matty Lloyd.
mm,
And you would think that, and so you think, well, where did this come from? And it is possible that it did come from these medieval figures. Now, we don't know that because there's no direct link and we don't have any concrete evidence. But it is curious that suddenly we have these hobby horses that also have 3 characters that go around with them. Now,
Mm.
nowadays it's more. Nowadays it's like a whole troop of people that go.
Yeah.
But if you look throughout places where the mummering customs were not banned, if you look at somewhere like Romania, the stag dance, and you
Mm.
look at the stag, or rather, I should say that it's a capper dance, it's a goat, and you look at you look at that, and you look at the depiction of the original stag man that was banned, and you go, oh, come on, like that has to be that. And you know what? Even if it's not, there is an experimental scientist by the name of Rupert Sheldrake. He's very controversial. But he talks about something called morphic resonance, where he thinks that there's something in the collective psyche where we all have like these ideas, or we all have these things where we need to celebrate something in this way, or a custom catches on and then it just morphs and morphs and morphs. And even something as modern like Santa Claus, we can trace it, but everybody has their own custom, and yet there's always something that comes and gives gifts. There's always revelry. There's always this. So, I think
light
so.
in the dark and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Well, but I suppose and a modern sort of development would be things like the so-called magic key, because now we've gone beyond a time where you're likely to have a chimney to have warmth in your house. So often you'll hear of families. I mean, obviously the ultimate expression of a modern thing would be the elf on the shelf, but families when they're trying to convince their kids that Santa can get in, don't worry, he's got a magic key that opens the door and this kind of thing. That's completely new, but it is nonetheless rooted in the need to have the being come and drop off the presents. And actually I find that really kind of fascinating, because if you think about it, like I heard in December one kid say, I think Santa, if there's no chimney, just breaks the window. Yeah, kicks in the door. And so it's not only explaining access where there's no traditional route of access, namely the chimney, but it's also mitigating the danger. It's kind of like Santa is allowed to come in because he's got a key, as opposed to Santa just well, but you're lucky he didn't burgle the house. I know he said burglarize, sorry. No, to burgle the house while he was here. It's interesting how these powerful bit entities and traditions have to be
changed. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they have to be changed, but also they have to be sort of safe as well, especially in this time. Being
Santa
fearful
doesn't know health and safety.
No, but no. Sorry, I mean safe,
yes.
as in he can't just come in your house in the summer.
Right, exactly.
Turn up and go, give me a hot dog. It's a magic key that works on Christmas Eve, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, these things do evolve and change.
And even Santa's lore himself has changed. I mean, why is he suddenly a toy maker?
Yeah,
he became a toy maker in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah.
And then he has Mrs. Claus, and then he has the elves, and then he has all the his lore in general got built out. And now people believe it, and it's fine. There's nothing I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And then the mechanization of that as well, this idea that the elves run essentially a factory, that they're almost in a Tolkien-esque kind of gnomic way, that they're really good with making things. Yeah. But this is why I'm fascinated by this idea of there being a validity to it, because all of these ideas have roots in other things, and they're all coming together, presumably because we have access to lots of different ideas that sort of crystallize at this time of year. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm rambling. Yeah. What's the next one?
Your buddy and mine is Krampus a pagan figure?
I'm gonna say no.
Possibly.
Oh,
possibly.
Okay. Well, we'll share a point.
So we do have concrete evidence for when his tradition of the Krampuslauf started, but Krampus was possibly once linked with Yule as the Christmas goat.
Okay.
Obviously, he's not in that aspect of that time, right? Because he was just a goat that came and brought presents. He might have traveled south through mumming plays and become St. Nicholas's companion over time. We don't know. His evolution His modern depiction is obviously not is more rooted in Christian devilry, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously he's not a like happy little goat that brings presents anymore, right?
No.
I mean, he is in
Which is
my
a
heart.
shame. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
it's
is
a
in my
shame.
heart.
Yeah.
Because he takes away the bad children.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Krampus,
or sorry,
or
sorry, the postcard that we were looking at the other day, where there's a female Krampus with naughty men, presumably, philanderers, and the guy in the basket looks so excited to
he's
be
so
there. He's
happy.
like, yeah, it's like, I like it when she hits me with the stick. Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating. Yeah.
It
Sorry,
doesn't
go
matter
on.
if she takes you back to the cave and eats you later, as long as you've had your
Yeah.
kicks first, that's totally
Yeah.
fine.
Exactly.
But again, like now it's evolving. Like Krampus is evolving in another way
Yeah.
where everybody's
Mm.
so excited to see him, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Krampus started sometime in the early Middle Ages, probably coming from earlier traditions of Frau Perchta, who was
Mhm.
a Christmas witch who came around and cut open the stomachs of children and filled them back up with rocks if you were bad. Krampus or other demons like him represent like the devil or demonic figure.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was there to punish bad children, but of course the devil is a Christian concept, right?
Mm.
That's where it comes from.
Mm.
But whether he was meant to demonize or represent paganism, some people claim he was meant to represent paganism, and like as in the pagan aspect
Yeah.
of the holiday. We don't know actually. We
No.
have no idea of knowing that. He might
But
also
again,
have.
but again, I think that's what I mean by this idea of making safe, because
Mhm.
if people that idea comes about because people like the idea of there being a raw, you know, uh, uncivilized aspect to these traditions that we carry with us, but Krampus can embody it in a way which is contained. So again, it's fascinating. The kind of things. Sorry, I interrupted you again.
Well, I mean, Krampus also has other like offshoots, right? Like
Yeah.
Knecht Rupert and Perfutard and I think Belsnickel. Many people know who he is now, but that's much later. Right? He's a much later
Mm-hmm.
depiction. In medieval iconography, Saint Nicholas is sometimes depicted as taming a chained demon, and that's possibly where uh, the modern depiction of Krampus came from.
Right.
Because he has no companion, demon, servant, or anything else like that
Mm.
until the 19th century.
Right.
So is Krampus an ancient pagan goat that got rebranded? Was he tacked on to Saint Nicholas to make pagans look bad? Was he personification of the devil? We actually don't know.
Interesting.
He also
Yeah.
might have just come out of regular folk traditions, like I said, with Frauprechta, that have just been around, that have nothing to do with the religion at all, and then he got tacked on. However,
Mm.
on old St. Newt's Day, which is January the 13th, there are
Saint
many
Newt.
Canute, yes,
Oh,
Newton
Canute. Sorry, Canute. Right.
Canute.
Yes. I thought you meant the
Uh,
small lizard.
no, I wish. That'd be amazing. A little lizard in a pope hat. That'd be
Yeah.
fantastic. But St. Canute's Day,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the 13th of January, many Nordic
Uh-huh.
countries mark the end of the holiday season. And Nutpukki, sorry for my Finnish, is the Newt's goat. He's a man
Oh.
dressed in fur jackets with birch bark, masts, and horns, and he
Mm-hmm.
would go to door to demand gifts and scrounge for
Oh.
leftover food.
Okay.
Um, and if you didn't give them what they wanted, they would make loud noises and scare children. And it's very interesting that we do have that custom because even in places like Japan, there's the Namahage, which does exactly the same thing, where the Namahage is a big demon that comes around. He has a little bucket and a knife, and
Uh-huh.
if you're bad, he'll scare you. He doesn't give gifts, he doesn't bring gifts, but when he comes around, you give him a drink and he goes on to the next house. And so it's essentially meant to scare away bad spirits for the year.
Right.
So too, the old tradition that we were talking about with the Romans and the Saxons, with Father Time, is that he would come
Mm.
around and people would give him drinks and then he would go away. He doesn't give gifts. You
No.
give him something to essentially to chase off death for another year. So
Yeah.
that custom seems to be prevalent in all cultures. It's
Mm.
pretty interesting that no matter where
Mm.
you are, that culture of some like a demon coming to visit you, giving them something to stave off bad luck or illness or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
is pretty much everywhere. So is Krampus a pagan figure? We really don't know, but his modern depiction came about 19th century.
Okay. Okay. And also I like that transactional aspect because it also ties in with how presumably starting with the night before Christmas, you have this idea of you give something and you get something.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
As a side note, because we're talking about the old woman before and burning the old woman or making the old woman as well. The figure of the old woman was once associated with this time of the year, and it's very possible that she did come from the Germanic Mother's Night. We're not really sure
Okay.
because we don't know of any female figure that is associated with that.
No.
Because there was a character called King Winter who went around in old Germanic times, but the female figure we're not really sure. In England, as we saw, that the mummer character of the old woman was banned. And in Italy, there's La Befana, who is the very famous Christmas witch, who's a good witch. She's welcomed with a big bonfire. Although nowadays they're actually, again, as you said, for safety, they now make a tiny fire. And instead, I think they're doing candles now. But La Befana is very famous in Italy. And but she comes for Epiphany. And Germany has Frau Perchta. Iceland has Groila, who is very Lucy in Norway, who is based on Saint Lucy, as in Saint Lucia's Day. And Scotland has Beira, or the Kaya, who is the hag spirit that comes around during winter, though she's more of a modern edition. And there's also the Christkindl, which, even though that is supposed to be the Christ child, her depiction, I say her because she's actually depicted as a woman. If you look up the Christkindl in Germany, it's a long blonde hair with a gold crown, and it's a woman. She's supposed to be a feminine angel who represents the coming of Christ. So, and she's the one who comes and gives gifts in certain parts of Germany.
Right. Is that possibly linked with the idea, the theological notion of Christ as the bride? No, the church is the bride of
Church
Christ,
is
isn't
bride
it?
of Christ.
Yeah, wrong way around. Okay.
That I don't know. I have
No.
no idea because it's not mentioned in any of these traditions. This tradition seems to have come specifically out of the fact that because Germany has 3 Santas. It has Saint Nicholas, but then certain parts of Germany that are not Catholic, they have the Christ child, and then they also have the Weihnachtsmann. Weihnachtsmann is just the modern depiction of Santa Claus. That's it. So I don't think so.
Is it Wine Night Man?
Oh no, so close, but you're
No.
so close.
Okay.
It's Vi from Weihen, which is means sanctity. So it's possible,
Right.
and but that again,
Oh
that's
no, so I don't mean the pronunciation, so I mean the meaning. Yeah,
yes,
in
the
that
meaning
sense.
is
Yeah.
the hallowedness of the saint. So it's
Right.
Weihnachtsmann is literally the man who comes on the sacred night. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Vine Night Man. Yeah. Very okay. Very cool. Yeah.
So one for you, Mark. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Here's one specifically for the English watching.
Okay.
Did Cromwell ban
I'll let that
Christmas?
slide. I'll let that slide. Did Cromwell ban Christmas? I think I'm going to say yes.
No!
Yeah, I knew it.
No, his
Yeah.
party did, and it was long before Cromwell ever came to prominence. They only banned church services, actually. They didn't ban the holiday. In 1647, they forced the churches to close and let people keep their shops open, though.
Okay.
People still celebrated Christmas at home.
That
There's
Protestant work ethic, you see.
yeah.
Yeah.
Work is love.
Yeah.
There are even public records of nobody being in Parliament on Christmas Day and people being very mad about it. Father Christmas was then invented afterward to spite the party. And then Cromwell came to prominence, but he didn't bring gifts, as we said. Scotland, amazingly, banned Christmas entirely, as well, part of their Reformation in 1560, which is why Hogmanay became so popular. And only reinstated it as a public holiday again in 1974.
Wow.
In the Middle Ages, the church tried to ban revelry in general because they felt folk activities were too pagan. So they banned the dressing up of winter spirits. But even though Cromwell himself did not like Christmas, it was his party who banned it before he showed up.
Okay.
So next question. Does anyone know why it's really called Boxing Day? Just to be clear, for people who don't know, there's Boxing Day is a sort of a British thing.
Yeah.
And it's also celebrated in Canada. It's also celebrated in New Zealand. Anywhere where the Queen was,
Yes.
that's where it's celebrated.
Anywhere, it's just where she went.
It is known as other things in certain parts of the world, but specifically the name Boxing Day. Why is it called Boxing Day?
So St. Stephen's Day,
Ah, yes, very good.
day
Yes,
after Christmas.
yes.
I'm going to say we don't know.
It is debated. Yes, it is debated
Okay.
as to why it is called Boxing Day, because it was, as you rightly say, it is St. Stephen's Day. It's St. Stephen's Day in Ireland and Catholic parts of the world. And it was a day for hunting, very famously the hunting of the wren, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and it was also a time where mummers started going around. And Saint Stephen is first mentioned in the Act of the Apostles as one of the seven deacons. He distributed food and charitable things to poor members of the community. So he's associated with alms. He was also stoned to death. He was lapidated. Delicious.
Yeah.
But his aspect of being associated with charity caught
Right.
on anyway. And in the United Kingdom, Boxing Day as well can't fall out on Sunday, December
No.
26th. So instead, Boxing Day is sometimes celebrated on the 27th of December, depending on when the day falls out. This rule is independent of bank holidays. And in Britain, it became a custom on this day for tradesmen to collect Christmas boxes of money or presents on the first weekday after Christmas, and thanks for good service throughout the year.
Okay.
This is mentioned in Samuel Pepys' diary in 1663. The custom is linked to older British traditions, where servants of wealthy were allowed the next day to visit their families, since they would have to serve their masters on Christmas Day.
I see.
But
Okay.
there is a wonderful in the 1700s. There is I can't remember the exact year, but there's one of the lords is complaining about how all the servants come around demanding their Christmas boxes, and he's so disappointed. And he, is possible, came up with the term Boxing Day or Boxes Day. We're not sure, because he was publicly complaining about servants going around asking for money.
Okay. Interesting. So sometimes you hear, I've certainly heard weird etymologies about fighting as well
Yeah,
with
I don't know where
boxing.
that came
I don't know
from.
where that came from either. No.
I've also
Um,
heard people say things about specifically uh, uh, people putting things in boxes that they don't want, that they got for Christmas,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
regifting them.
yeah.
While that might be a tradition, that's not where the name comes from.
Well, also as well, there's a slight variation on that, where and actually, a lot of people did do that to this day. For example, on the street where I live, where the idea is that you put your presents and all the Christmas decorations away on Boxing Day. That's when you box everything up. So again, it's a, but again, we're talking about conversion to evolution here. We're talking about, people creating out of,
And customs change
yeah,
all the time.
yeah.
Speaking of which, is Christmas revelry a leftover from pagan times?
So getting drunk, hanging out with people, kissing people you don't know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think there's no way of knowing.
It is actually. It is something that one of the few things that
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
we did adopt, yeah, from pagan times. But I mean, revelry and like foolery in general has always been part of this time of the year, and it was adopted and became part of Christmas. So
You didn't say it, by the way.
what?
That my status for getting it wrong.
Sorry. No, I can't do it all the time. I gotta get it when you're not expecting
Oh,
it.
okay. Okay, well, I'm adding your point. There you go.
So it's always been a part of this time of the year, whether it be
Right.
Christmas or not. Saturnalia, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The birth of the sun has always had revelry associated with it. It's the only
Okay.
thing we're sure of. From boy bishops to dice games, mummers plays, people going around to masters' houses, hobby horses, which hobby horses started in the late 14th century, hoodening, right? Hoodening horses,
Yeah.
especially in
Yeah.
Kent. Matty Lloyd, late 18th century.
Okay.
La Revane, Old Tup, etc., the Lord of Misrule or the Abbot of Unreason, held office all the way from Halloween till Epiphany.
Okay, okay.
And might have come from the Magister Ludi or the Lord of Games from Saturnalia.
Well,
Gambling was central in medieval times for Christmas,
uh-huh.
as is documented during the time of Richard II. In Norfolk, specifically in 1459, in the Paston Papers, it claims that everybody sat at tables and played chess and cards, but banned sports and guising for some reason.
Oh,
I think they were in mourning for something. The church in medieval times had its own revelry, which was called the Feast of Fools, right?
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but the thing that actually ended up coming later was Christmas becoming less revelrous over time. It used to
Oh,
be completely raucous and obviously, like I said, full of games, plays, tons of things.
lots of songs as well. Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
Christmas
Not
became
just the carols. So
much
go
more
on.
subdued in Victorian times. Oh, sorry,
Hmm.
before Victorian times. Jane Austen writes about Christmas in Emma and Persuasion, and there's no revelry, no trees, decorations, nothing.
No.
There no gifts either.
Hmm.
There's only a small dinner and a family get together, and they
Hmm.
ate brawn. And that was their big thing, was eating brawn.
Okay.
Um, Ooh.
Yeah.
First, the
Yeah.
very first mummers, however, were that went around at Christmas were recorded in 1296 in the time of Edward I but it was at his daughter's wedding, and the wedding happened to have happened at Christmas.
Okay.
And they
Okay.
had music, masquerade, dice, and their plays were often about. So sometimes their plays were about life
Mm-hmm.
and about things coming back to life, but that had just to again symbolize the joy of the year.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Well, in my defense, I was putting that in a prehistoric context as well. So that's why I was like, we have no way of knowing. But I should have known better. So yeah, you do get that point, and I was indeed incorrect
Well, I
or
said pagan,
wrong.
which does include Saturnalia.
It does, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
it counts.
Saturnalia, it doesn't isn't prehistoric. So I'm dancing on the head of a pin here. You deserve the point. Okay,
You could
cool.
give yourself a point anyway, and I wouldn't know about it.
Well, I don't know because how many questions are there?
Oh, there are only a few left.
Well, no, so I'm not asking because I want to know how much more torture I have to suffer. It's it's more about just in terms of point keeping. You see.
Oh, so here's a torturous one for you, Mark.
Okay,
You
okay,
ready?
okay.
When should you take down your decorations?
When should you? I think it probably depends on when you're alive. So I
Go
think
ahead.
okay. Elaborate. Okay, I think that today one should on the 5th, possibly the 6th of January. But some people traditionally don't until sometime in February.
So the wording is so perfect. Yes, exactly.
Okay,
So
okay. Phew.
so here is the thing. So anybody who takes it down on Boxing Day is an idiot. But as you say, modern traditions do change, right? So people
Yeah,
put them up now, no, on Halloween or
yeah.
All Hallows Eve, which I think is silly,
Mm,
but that's things are morphing, right? To go
yeah.
with the times is how it is. And then, as you say, people take them down on Boxing Day, which is a
Mm,
bit silly because then if you're going to celebrate New Year's, the house is not decorated.
no.
But Twelfth Night is, or rather, I should say, the day Epiphany is the
Mm,
day when people traditionally did take them down in
yeah.
certain countries.
Okay.
But it was customary to leave them up, especially in medieval times, all the way until Candlemas, as we said, until the 2nd of February. In the 17th century, that is where the end of Christmas time was, because that marked the beginning of Shrovetide, right?
Right.
So some say to take them down on Epiphany. Some even say Saint Distaff's Day, which is the 7th of January.
Distaff.
Saint Distaff.
Oh,
Distaff.
distaff.
Yeah,
Okay.
Saint Distaff's Day.
I
Um,
need to get a proper calendar of medieval saint names. I mean, they're amazing, aren't they? And
the
then
stories are
insert the
amazing, and
newt.
they all go on D&D campaigns. So why
Yeah.
wouldn't you want to?
Exactly. Yeah.
Folk customs say, and the reason for this, folk customs say that taking them down too early was bad
Mm,
luck and would bring fairies. As well, in Ireland and in other parts of Europe, burning your decorations, which were usually made from holly, ivy, right, and other greens, burning the holly was an old custom to keep away the fairies, they said. This also might have something to do with the Yule log, right? Because the Yule log, you brought into the house, you burnt it, and then you would keep it for presumably the following year.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
This is an easy one for you, Mark. You ready? This is an easy one.
Yep.
Was there always turkey at Christmas?
No. Well, no.
Final answer?
No, but sorry, I'm being really pedantic here. In places where turkey was, no doubt it was eaten on Christmas Day without
And
anyone
where
knowing.
was turkey?
In the New World.
Okay.
So I don't know how much of a stickler you're going to be, but for people who knew about Christmas and might have celebrated it, no.
It first recorded turkey was in the 1500s. 1550, a merchant from Yorkshire was the first to introduce it to Europe, wanting the turkey on a crest, which he was granted, and he had to, like we said, he had to apply for it, so we know that happened. Henry VIII was the first to have it on his Christmas table, but obviously it was far too expensive for anyone else to have one. Feasting in general has always been part of Christmas. The Yule boar was the original turkey or ham, and in 1377, Richard II, who was 10 at the time and had the most lavish Christmas, was said to have had a giant Yule boar and had a feast that was bigger than 10,000 people.
Wow.
So says, because it was run by the Duke of Lancaster, who was probably trying to curry favor with people. But yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, I see. So pointing at the lavishness of the feast. Okay.
So here's the super easy one for you, Mark. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Is Christmas too commercialized nowadays?
By what standard? Okay, I would say
do you think Christmas is too commercialized?
I would say it has always had a
correct.
Yes.
Correct. People have always complained about Christmas, always about it being rowdy, pagan, commercial. So here's some amazing historical complaints. Saint Boniface, 742, wrote about how people went to Rome for Christmas, and he was absolutely livid to find out that people were singing and dancing in the streets and having a good time.
Unbelievable.
The best one, though, Saint Gregory of Nanzinus, 384 AD, said, Christmas has been ruined. It should be about the birth of Christ and about being good to each other. Instead, it's about overeating, overdrinking, and falling out with your family. 384 AD.
Oh my goodness. Wow. How times change or not. Yeah. I like it.
That was 25 years after Christmas was introduced in Rome, and people were already complaining about it. Classic.
I like it. Okay. That's got to go on a badge or a t-shirt, hasn't it?
Oh, it's so good. I want that. Like Saint Gregory of Nanzinus says, 384 AD, Christmas has been ruined. He wrote that back to Rome. So good. Put that in the soup shop. That needs to be there.
I've got to. Yeah.
Along with Ollie's head. That's so good.
That we're gonna make it happen in the coming year. We are. It's gonna happen. Yeah.
So another easy one for you, Mark. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Did Christmas always have presents?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
No. Well,
what about the gold, frankincense, and myrrh?
Show me where they are in the Bible, and I'll tell you yes.
Oh, rats.
No, it was made up as part of the nativity story. But gift giving gift giving is tied to this part of the year, right? And it's gift giving is given as sort of like a blessing for people to make them feel good at the end of the year, and also as you want to give like wishes and things like that to other people. But it was originally done on calends in Rome, which is January the 1st. Children got gifts from Saint Nicholas on December the 6th.
Okay.
And then certain people got and people still some people still do get gifts on Epiphany, because that's, as you said, that is when the Magi with their frankincense and their gold
Yeah.
was supposed to have come around. But
Yeah.
that was a later construction. That once the Reformation happened, though, Father Christmas
Hmm.
or something like him gave presents at Tudor court in order to make sure that people were not venerating the saints, but gifts disappear for a bit.
Okay.
Some people got presents on New Year's Day, like the Scottish people in
Mm.
Hogmanay. Many people opened gifts and still only open. Many people got gifts before Christmas and only opened them on Twelfth Night or Epiphany to mark the
Okay.
end of the holiday. And coal used to be a good thing to get. Because
Yeah.
especially in Victorian times, getting coal was amazing. You were literally getting you were getting your electric bill paid.
Tasty, tasty coal. Yeah.
It became, obviously, when things change over, it became something bad and something, but
Mm.
oftentimes bad children would also get a potato instead
Oh,
of
yeah.
coal.
Okay. Yeah.
The Germans and Dutch gave presents on Christmas Eve, and it was Queen Victoria who, she used to give presents at a different time, but then she started giving presents publicly on Christmas Eve to
Okay.
mark the beginning of the holiday. And so now most people give presents on Christmas Eve. What were the original carols?
Like, which ones were the original carols?
Well, what were original Christmas carols? Not necessarily the songs, but what were they?
Christmas carols. They were uh songs that were sung uh to stay warm.
Rah!
Oh, okay. Okay.
Caroling in general, caroling was originally a dance. It wasn't songs. They were invented by
Oh,
Siskin.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a circle dance that
Yeah.
was invented by Siskin friars. It was
Carol. Yeah.
exactly, you got
Yeah.
it. It was a ring dance. Carols were they were musical and dance troupes. So, some of the earliest carols, however, were drinking songs that were about, obviously, wassailing for good health. And couple notes, carols were not originally sung before Christmas. Some of them weren't even written for Christmas. So, for example, Jingle Bells was actually written for Thanksgiving. Um,
Oh,
because carols were sung in church, they weren't sung before church. As well, other holidays used to have carols, like Halloween. Halloween had
right.
carols, but they're gone now. So things like Soul, Soul, Soul
Yeah,
King,
yeah,
what would I
yeah.
do for a soul? That was a Halloween carol.
Right. Interesting. Because that's s- soul cakes was an aspect of Halloween mumming, wasn't it? You go
Yes,
around. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
The original
Interesting.
trick or treat, the for really real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Uh I really felt as though I was putting my hand, the Roman thing where you put your hand into the mouth and you're just like,
Exactly.
I just knew it was coming, but there's no way I could hold it off. Um, okay,
This
interesting.
is an
Thank you.
easy this is an easy one for you. What is the oldest Christmas custom? Or what are some of the oldest Christmas customs?
Midnight Mass?
No.
Oh, I don't know. Oh no.
Bringing greenery into the home,
Oh,
holly and
okay.
ivy. Holly and
Yeah.
ivy. Feasting
Okay.
is ancient, very ancient. Creating
Right.
bonfires as well, or lighting lights. Wassailing is also extremely old, which I
Right.
don't know if many people do anymore because of COVID. Nobody wants to share the same wassailing bowl.
No. No.
Um, Singing is old as well. There are
Yeah,
records
bobbing
of.
for apples has gone out the window as well, hasn't it?
Oh, that's usually associated with
Oh yeah, no,
Hallows
it's
Tide. Yeah,
Halloween, but still, yeah,
yeah.
that's sort of gone. Yeah.
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 But singing is very old as well. Farmers, we have records of farmers singing to their fields, people singing to beehives, orchards, as in to encourage them to grow. Charity as
Hmm.
well. Charity and visiting family and friends is probably the oldest, some of the oldest
Okay.
recorded customs that we have.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to be wrong on that one. Actually, yeah, I was thinking, well, what, like, if you're talking about Christmas, but you weren't. You were talking about Christmas time,
Sorry, I should
which is, yeah,
Christmas time.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's one you'll get right, Mark. I promise.
Midwinter.
I
Yeah, okay.
promise.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the deal with mincemeat pies?
They used to contain actual meat,
Yes.
and the whole thing of having fruit and stuff together, actually the pie filling, I think, is probably more best described as what would be an old boiled type pudding type substance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank
I
you.
told you that one was easy. I told
Yeah, yeah. Boil in the bag. Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Extravagant.
It's really by the Victorian era that the meat in the mincemeat got to be dropped in the dishes as well. Meat used to mean something else. It just meant flesh. So it wasn't like fruit
Yeah.
flesh.
Yeah.
So and it had a completely different connotation in Germanic countries.
Well, but also I seem to recall that one of Henry VIII's favorite pies involved meat and sweets in a way that we just wouldn't do anymore.
Yeah.
It just did that whole the palate was very different for a long time, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
the very last question
All right. Hit me.
is saying Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays pagan?
I think it's a weird American obsession, this question.
Correct. Correct.
Yes. Right.
I don't know how this started. I was actually watching some Christmas commercials from the 1980s, and
Mhm.
that Hershey's had no problem saying Happy Holidays. So this whole thing of
Yeah.
Happy Holidays versus Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas,
Yeah.
that it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Merry is the Saxon, happy
Mhm.
is the Danish. You can choose whatever you want. It doesn't matter at all.
Exactly. Personally, you know, because I think it's nice to be inclusive. I quite like season's greetings.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I quite like that one. But also at the same time, there is something. The whole. Interestingly enough, I am very conscious when. So, for example, for yesterday's story reading that I did, where I wasn't quite sure what to call it because I didn't want to have it politicized. In that sense, Christmas has become quite a politicized word because of that very what's the word constructed argument and performative offense that people
It's
have around
completely
it.
made up because
Yeah,
the people we've been saying Happy Holidays for ages.
yeah,
For
yeah,
ages. So there's
yeah.
it has nothing to do with erasing Christmas. Has nothing to do with
You're
Christmas
not
is
allowed to say Christmas anymore. Yeah, yeah,
it's nonsense.
yeah.
It's
Absolute
completely
nonsense.
nonsense. We've been saying
Okay.
all kinds of things forever, and it doesn't matter what you say. That's
Yeah.
all.
No, yeah, yeah.
So
Have a
in
good time.
conclusion, since this
Yep.
whole thing has been about the myths of Christmas, is Christmas actually pagan and or Christian? According to a poll in
Uh-huh.
2022 that was done by Atlas Obscura, 37% of people, specifically in England and Wales, say they are absolutely of no religion whatsoever,
Mm.
but 88% of them said they celebrated Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think in that sense, yeah, Christmas, I think is some people I know really complain that we're losing the true meaning of Christmas, that kind of thing.
just
Yeah,
remember, we've
yeah,
been
yeah, yeah,
complaining about it
yeah,
since
yeah.
fourth
But
century.
exactly, 1700 years or more. Um, but actually, but one of the great things about that issue of commercialization and access to various ways of saying happy holidays and the convergence of different people's winter beliefs. We all need something to hold on to in the dark, especially in the northern hemisphere. Is that actually it's become very inclusive. It's not that it's become sanitized or that it's become commercialized and therefore a religious. I think actually it means you can bring your religion into it if you want to.
Exactly. Yeah,
But also
100%.
as well, I have Muslim friends whose kids get Christmas presents because it's not explicitly just about a Christian belief. So yeah, I'm all for that. Christmas as big and as inclusive as possible. Yes, please.
I think now it's just a cultural holiday. It's
Yeah.
something that we do. It's a seasonal thing. It's just something that we do to mark, obviously, the beginning of the new year, mark the
Yeah.
return of the sun.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's either really pagan or Christian.
No. So the
It's
answer is yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Is
and
it one or the other? Yes.
yes. It's really like a layered cake of winter, as you said, of winter traditions, where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
we grabbed a bit here, so put it on. We grabbed a bit here, put it on, and then
Yeah.
as the centuries went on, we now have this giant layer cake of what is Christmas, and it's really just a time of festivity and revelry, as it always has been.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
I think trying to make it more one way or the other is not helpful.
yeah, I won't comment on that because I could go off on a rant. But in that sense, it's very much like the Christmas tree at House Franklin and the Christmas tree here at Soup Towers, where it's just become a collection, an explosion of things that we love and that we love to see and that we want to share and that bring us joy at this time of year. So yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if you think
Mm.
about, what goes on the Christmas tree nowadays, like you said, you have your things, and I have my Christmas tree, which is over there, is all Nintendo themed, pretty much.
Mm.
So
Mm.
there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
As well, there is a wonderful. I just want to end with saying there was a wonderful story that happened on Twitter a couple of years ago of a Muslim man who celebrated Christmas for the first time. And
Uh-huh.
when I was a kid, we were not allowed to celebrate it because my parents were very much off it.
Right.
But which is why I love it now. And
That's why I love Halloween, actually.
yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
not allowed, and
Yeah.
I loved it. So this gentleman, I don't remember his name, but they wanted to give him a true and proper Christmas. So
Mhm.
they brought him round to the shops on the 23rd. He got to pick an ornament that represented him. I think he picked a bagel ornament. And
Fair
because
enough.
I think they were in New York, and he picked a
Yeah.
bagel. So he picked a bagel, and he put it on the tree, and
Hmm.
they gave him like the full Christmas dinner and all that. And he had a great time.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
had an amazing time. And he said, this is like this is what I hope the Christmas spirit for most people to be, is this.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
agree. I think that there's something magic, always has
Yeah.
been, about this time of year, something magical about Christmas, something about the darkness and how people just come together
Mm.
and want
Mm.
to play games and make revelry and
Mm.
do that kind of thing and give each other gifts and wish each other well for the new year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that goes beyond any kind of religious aspect to this time of the year.
Mm. Absolutely.
So how'd we do, Mark? What's the tally?
Well, for Mr. Ma, that's me, there's a score of 20. And then for Fumi, that's you, there's a score of 10. So actually, pretty damn good, actually,
I
I
told
think,
you it
on
wouldn't do
your
so
part.
bad.
Yeah.
I
Well,
told
yeah,
you.
but also at one point I was like, oh no, like you're only going to get like 2 points, but no, you pulled it back 10 full points and 20 to me, so a nice round 30 there.
That's right.
Um,
So the gift that you get
there we go.
for winning, Mark,
Yeah.
is further reading.
Yay!
The gift
Further
all
reading.
academics should get for Christmas. So
Uh-huh.
so a lot of this obviously was research from many different sources. Two of the main sources are the Stations of the Sun by Professor Ronald Hutton. I have one of his books here. I don't have Stations. I have the digital version of Stations of the Sun.
Okay.
This is his new book, Queens of the Wild. Which and he also did a series in the Idler, which is all about Christmas. So I do recommend, if you want to see more of this kind of thing, go to the Idler and look up their Christmas talk specifically. And they've got a whole course on the history of holidays, which is all done by Professor Ronald Hutton.
And is that filled with people being slightly killed in the audience? It's like, oh no.
Oh, that was his Viking talk. That was
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay.
If you want to see an audience, 300 people mentally die at once, you have to watch that. It's so good. So another source is historian Judith Flanders' Christmas Biography. This
Okay.
is a really great book that I recommend. I do wish it had an index. It doesn't. Just warning you in case you're looking for things. This book by folklorist Jane Struthers, which is fantastic. This is one of my favorite books,
Okay.
the Book of Christmas, which goes into not only Christmas, but the whole holiday season from Halloween all the way until Shrovetide. So the
Right.
entire 2-month period. Another source is the Gone Medieval podcast. They do like a little bit of like the history of Christmas every year.
Uh-huh.
And as well, the History Hit podcast did a whole thing about the history of Christmas. So that's all your sources. There's your further reading. That's the gift that we give to you, Mark. Thank you for
Thank you very much.
being here. I hope it was fun. I hope it was informative. I hope you learned something as well.
I definitely did, and hopefully people at home did. Just out of interest though, is that the book of Christmas? Is that the book that you featured on TikTok as being sort of dog-eared and stained?
Oh yes, so it is
Yeah,
stained because I think I've
yeah,
had this book for maybe 15 years or something like
yeah.
that. That not dog ears though. Look at the come
Oh,
on, don't
okay,
do that
sorry,
to
sorry.
me.
Oh, sorry. No, but sorry, apologies. Do you
But
know?
look who's inside of it though.
Yay, married Lewid. Excellent,
Maddie
very good.
Lloyd.
Oh, they speaking of which though, yeah, Mrs. Soup does the dog earring. So we watched a few months ago now. Actually, we watched Howl's Moving Castle, and then we went to read the book,
Hmm.
and we
Very
were reading it
different.
back, yeah, very different, but back and forth overnight. And what I would find is that one of the pages every time would be slightly dog-eared, and she was marking where she was up to by.
Now, if
So
you have a
I
reading,
got a bookmark.
if you have a reading copy, see, I use bookmarks, but if you have a reading copy of something, I always dog ear my favorite pages, but very specifically for
Uh-huh.
books that I'm not going to lend out. Like this is this
Okay. Okay.
and not limited editions of books. So if
No.
it's a reading copy, one that I have to reference,
Yeah.
I will do it. This book happens to have an index. This one
Yeah.
does not.
No.
So I will dog ear this one.
But that's fine for for as you say for going back to a page, but just because you can't be asked having a bookmark, I mean,
No,
not good enough. Not good enough.
that's unacceptable
And she
in
knows
any
it.
fashion. So, well, thank you for playing, Mark. I'm
You're very
so
welcome.
glad you had a good time. Thank you for being a
Super.
good sport and for agreeing to do this. And I hope it was fun.
It has been.
You won the gift of knowledge,
Yeah, the gift of knowledge. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
which but now that you know, now you're good. Whenever you hear people say things like Odin is Santa, it's good. It's
Mm.
going to boil up inside of you, and you're going to start
Yeah.
shaking. You're going to do what I do, which is
Yeah. I refer you to. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you very much. And I hope you guys at home enjoyed this as well. Cheers.